They made that contact at some point. A shooting did occur.
Breaking overnight, one man shot and an officer hurt. What we're learning about a confrontation involving Glendale police.
And partying without masks on Halloween. CU Boulder students ignore social distancing rules. The message now from the country's top health official about taking this pandemic seriously.
We want to make sure people don't get so discouraged that they feel it's futile to adhere to the public health measures.
And leaving the classroom, the district switching to remote learning after this spike in coronavirus cases.
7 a.m. on November 1st. Good morning, I'm Katie LaSalle and welcome to Denver 7 News.
I'm Eric Lufer. Thanks for joining us. After a very mild Halloween, it will be yet another great day to enjoy fall outside. Katie, it'll be even a little warmer out there today than it was yesterday.
Sure will be a few degrees, so we'll be in the low to mid 60s over the metro area, and then a gradual warm up as we go through this upcoming week as well. Sun is shining, skies are clear. It was a beautiful start to our day. If you saw the sunrise, and you can see temperatures though are in the low 30s and it only feels like 27 degrees. So don't let the sunshine fool you just yet. It is still really cold and crisp out there this morning, especially into the mountains where we're in the upper teens to low 20s from Gunnison up through Steamboat and into Leadville. Low 30s from Sterling over Akron. If you're taking the dogs out this morning, definitely wear a jacket, but by noon we'll be at 60 degrees. Daytime highs in the low to mid 60s. Winds will be calmer as well across the Front Range and Eastern Plains. Into the mountains, 40s and 50s, 60s today, then 70s tomorrow.
And breaking news overnight, a Glendale police officer and a man are in the hospital after a police shooting overnight. It happened near Colorado and Alameda. Denver police say Glendale officers approached an unresponsive man in a truck, and that's when shots were fired.
From there, the party that they were attempting to contact accelerated in a reverse motion, causing his truck to go southbound here on Colorado Boulevard and striking another vehicle. Oh, that is a police vehicle that belongs to Glendale.
The officer in that vehicle was taken to the hospital. Denver police say his condition is no worse than serious. That's all they're telling us right now. The man is critical at a hospital. Denver police don't know what caused Glendale police to approach the man. It's also unclear if the man had a weapon.
Colorado is seeing another big jump in coronavirus cases. Yesterday, the state reported nearly 3,000, and that's the largest number of daily positive cases in Colorado since this pandemic began. Last month, we saw twice as many cases as we saw in any other month this year. The state says 3% of hospitals could reach ICU capacity, quote, soon. And today, close to 800 ICU beds are being used by COVID patients or patients with COVID-19 symptoms. The statewide ICU capacity is around 2,000, and state leaders warn we are on track to hit that number in January.
The increase in coronavirus cases is forcing many Colorado counties to impose new restrictions, including Denver, where we're now at Safer at Home Level 3. Those guidelines encourage remote and hybrid learning for students. Several districts are switching back to remote learning starting tomorrow. That includes Denver Public Schools. Denver 7's Sean Toole is in the newsroom. And Sean, some of these students had just returned to class before all this happened.
That's right, Eric. Those 3rd through 5th graders in DPS had been back in class less than a week or so before the news came out that they were heading back to remote. And DPS had already pushed back the return of in-person learning for middle and high school schoolers, and then announced they will stay with remote learning through the end of the semester, which ends in December. And it was tough for a number of students to hear that they'd be going back to full remote for a longer period of time, as parents were torn with the district decision, which they said they didn't want to make.
I'm relieved. We had opted to keep our older daughter home through the semester anyway, but we had signed our younger daughter up to be back in person. She's in 3rd grade.
My 4th grader, he needs the interaction, I think. He needs to be at school and not isolated at the house. I think he thrives on that. So it's a little heartbreaking to hear that news. And only after a week.
It's an imperfect approach for sure, but we're going to do our best.
And beginning on Monday, all Englewood and Westminster students will also be headed back to remote learning. Back to you guys.
Sean, thank you. Social distancing guidelines did not appear to stop some CU Boulder students from attending parties to celebrate Halloween. Days after the city of Boulder lifted restrictions on college-aged kids, our cameras spotted dozens of that age group gathered in full costume with no masks on. CU Boulder says most students are following social distancing guidelines, but they say students who are cited for failing to follow the rules could face additional sanctions from the school. Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the country's top infectious disease expert, is telling CU students to please take the pandemic seriously. He spoke this week to students taking a class that focuses on all aspects of the pandemic. He told them there's not only a personal responsibility to protect ourselves, but a responsibility to protect society from the virus. He says infected people who do not take precautions risk the chance of spreading the virus to the country's vulnerable population.
You may not get sick, you may not get any symptoms, but the chances are that you will pass it on to someone else, who'll pass it on to someone else, who then is vulnerable. That may be someone's grandparent. That may be someone's wife who's undergoing chemotherapy for breast cancer. That may be a child who's immunodeficient.
Fauci also told students the country will make it through the pandemic and that public health measures will help contain the virus. He also says he is optimistic about a vaccine. New coronavirus restrictions will not affect the Broncos game today. Some fans will still be allowed at Empower Field at Mile High for the Chargers game. Kickoff is set for just after 2. Nick Rothschild will have more on the game coming up in just about 20 minutes for you.
The city of Denver will open its Emergency Operations Center tomorrow in preparation for any election-related issues. The center will stay open as long as needed. City leaders haven't used it since the coronavirus pandemic first hit Colorado back in March. Nearly 2.5 million people in Colorado have voted so far. Wow, we're at almost 90% of the vote total from 2016. And don't forget, Ball Arena is open tomorrow and Tuesday as a polling location. You can also drop off your completed ballot there or pick up a ballot curbside. You can also register to vote. If you vote in person on Election Day, you must be in line by 7 p.m. Make sure to stay with Denver 7 on Election Night. We will be joined by more than a dozen experts from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Tuesday. You can find our coverage on Denver 7 for your Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, or Android device.
Some more encouraging news for firefighters containing the Cameron Peak and East Troublesome fires this morning. The Cameron Peak fire could be fully contained by next Sunday. It has now burned more than 200,000 acres, but hasn't grown significantly, thankfully, in more than a week. And in Grand County, firefighters say the East Troublesome fire is not growing and do not expect it to turn in the near future. The containment is still weeks away, though. The fire has burned nearly 200,000 acres there and has destroyed nearly 200 buildings.
These historic wildfires have ravaged communities, but they also produced incredible sunsets. And we introduced you to Colorado photographer Jeremy Janis last month. He took some unbelievable images near the fires. He had friends who were forced to evacuate, and his brother is a firefighter, and he wanted to find a way to give back by selling photos and donating the proceeds to our Denver 7 Gives Fund for wildfire victims.
Just having something tangible that is really a part of history in the making, and it's going to be pertinent, 10 years down the road. It's giving them something tangible to hold, but it's also allowing them to give back to the community.
Look at that shot there. So far, Jeremy has raised more than $4,000, and people donated from more than a dozen states. And we keep setting goals, and you keep breaking them. We've raised more than $220,000. And we have our sights set on $250,000. Thank you so much for your donations. And you can still donate. On the denverchannel.com, click Denver 7 Gives. And under the drop-down menu, you can select Help Colorado Wildfire Victims.